You got the short straw there.
Well, I figured,
I didn't hear the answer.
I figured Travis has spent 2 days out here, I would give him in operations all day today, and I'm like, I got it.
Thought maybe you just got it.
You know, I think it's.
Well, I'm not on that new truck.
He is. But that's why we have him. Because there's nothing. But
You got that food.
I do, but I didn't have to think. At least
Yeah.
for us, transport my children faster. So. You can ask, so Pat actually yelled down the hallway. Oh, yeah, I probably should just assume because I have to be.
And they're done that.
Yep, been there, done that.
Miss it when it's done.
You will, yeah, you will absolutely miss it.
So if any of you are on board, you let me know. I got a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old that I can certainly help, fill your downtime.
Yeah.
Should be so neat. 14-year-old is for rent multiple times.
14-year-old granddaughter.
Yes.
See, like, or she's a 12-year-old granddaughter.
Yep.
Steve, like, she's going on 6.
That is-
Yeah, exactly.
People laugh at it. I always say, they're like, what? I'm like, I pity whatever way I see that. Good luck.
Good luck with it, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Tyler, Deb, Brad,
maybe.
Yeah. Me too.
yeah, all my other stuff is in the cleaners because I've been working on it. Manly, see, I've never gone there. I'm kind of more traditional. Even though I got 3 girls, I just can't.
Oh, now
Can't
you
do
gotta
it.
figure it out.
We have so much of it at home already. So much pink already.
You know what's coming your way.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember Patrick's.
I'm here now.
Okay, girls.
Well, I need to get advice from him then.
Oh, first time I ever met the youngest, I pulled into this right away. She had an industrial size leaf blower on her back. Now it's the same dark thing all year. She's full.
Hey, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit down. Okay, I want to know where you guys stopped. Where did you stop? That's where you take the elephant. I've already had my exercise. Line dancing this morning, vacuuming this afternoon.
Today than I have. You're next. What'd you do? Get a haircut?
Yeah, no, they started that.
No.
Okay, so let me show you.
You're gonna stick
She
it.
yesterday. I look short. No, I probably am.
It's really able to.
Just the two items. I can't make it. So.
Nope.
It's just like the one you had last night.
I imagine they're exactly the same.
Pretty much, yeah.
Nope, there's that.
What we're hoping for.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh.
do it now, but it's,
If you don't have it, when I go home, I can make a copy of it and drop it off in the morning,
I will,
which is
yeah,
fine. I just,
it's not working. For some reason, it's not searching.
I thought he sent it that day that we were
Oh,
conversing
yeah,
about
no, I
it.
do have it.
Okay,
I think.
fine. If it did go through, I can surely drop off a hard copy.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thanks for reminding.
Yeah. like the roof is this week.
Yeah.
I
Just
didn't
as
get
soon
time,
as
so,
soon as I do
yeah, that was so. So is the plan to email that out to everybody?
Last night, Dave just
Typically,
renamed himself, and now it still says Sally County. Last night it said Dave,
If I just get it on city.
tonight it's Sally again. So,
I can just make copies of it.
yeah, he changed the name last night.
All right, before we begin, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open up the special city council meeting. Time is now 5:30. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call.
Please cast your vote for roll call. Six council members are present, Mayor.
Okay, moving on, item 1, ordinance 5586 to approve government salary ordinance. This would be for final reading. This time we'll have staff report.
Could I raise a point of information first, please?
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask the council to waive the Fremont Municipal Code Rules 2-108, paragraphs 14 and 15 for tonight's meeting.
Councilman Jensen.
I would just point out that 5 members of this council voted to do this in one reading, so I don't imagine we're going to have the votes to lengthen it any longer.
Is that a motion? Can we have a motion? Yeah. Councilman Ellis, second. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion fails 2-4.
This time we'll have staff report.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, Jennifer McDuffie, Human Resources Director. This is the government salary ordinance for the city side of the organization. I think I've kind of gone through the basics, so I'll just open it up for questions.
Questions for staff? Councilman Yerger.
Earlier today, I sent several questions, giving you a heads up that I intended to ask these this evening. Hopefully these are yes/no questions for you, so they wouldn't take a lot of time on anyone's part this evening. So I'm just going to run through the questions I asked, largely because at the last meeting, we were told council members were only allowed to review an executive session and public is not allowed to review at all. And we could come to City Hall if we wanted to see the studies, et cetera. So I just have these questions. So I'm just going to roll down the list.
Mr. Yerger, I'm actually going to interrupt you. I've seen your questions. And again, as pointed out to you previously, the questions and the responses to these would fall squarely within the requirement to go into executive session and fall squarely within the exception to a public records request. I would ask that any of these questions, if you want that dialogue, we'll gladly go into executive session or schedule a time to meet with Ms. McDuffie. An open session is not appropriate place for these questions and responses to be had.
You're kidding me. These are yes/no questions. Then I moved.
They are not yes/no questions.
They are yes/no questions, and I moved to go into executive session as a result. Thank you.
Then that's fine. We'll do that. Make the appropriate motions and we can gladly discuss it in executive session.
I'm gonna go get the literature if you want to hold one.
Yeah.
And the reasons. So the executive session that I have here, it was set up for contract negotiation, but that will want to be changed to collective bargaining. And so when you make your motions for this item, use the phrase collective bargaining.
I don't want to talk about collective bargaining. I want to talk about the salary studies that were done. There's nothing-
And the salary studies are used for collective bargaining, for which we still have one contract open and have another one coming up in 2 years. Hence the reason it has to go into executive session.
non-bargaining employees.
But you're not asking specifically about non-bargaining. Your entire questions go into all bargaining units.
I beg your pardon, they do not. But I'm
I
happy to
believe
go-
that they
I'm happy
do.
to go to the executive session to do it, but the discussion is not specifically to talk about bargaining contracts.
The questions aren't posed in that specific of a fashion.
I don't know how to pose the motion. I'm not particularly interested in going into discussion on bargaining. If that's where we're going, I don't believe it'll be in the meeting for the record.
If you want the questions asked that you put in that email to Ms. McDuffie, they are not specific enough not to engage in the collective bargaining. Therefore, it is required that we should go into executive session to have that dialogue that you would like to have. And that is completely fine.
I move we go into executive session. for the-
Can you turn it on, please?
I move we go into executive session for the purpose of strategy session with regards to wage salary studies, contract negotiation issues, and other further reasons that executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest.
Is there a second? Councilman Ellis? A motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of the strategy session with respect to collective bargaining.
You know, we need to repeat what Councilmember Yerger said. What was it that you said? I'm not sure that that's a legal reason to go into executive session, but.
Well, the council has said that study sessions associated with the salary plans and contract negotiations, and in your language, are all privileged, need to be in executive session. I only inserted the purpose of my discussion is for the salary studies.
So what you said.
And the
you
salary
said
studies were
salary-
used for contract negotiations, Mr. Yerger. We've
I
explained this
understand
to you.
that. Can I word my own motion?
You can, but I can't guarantee that it will pass or fall within the requirements.
So what was it was salary plan. I want to get the language right for the minutes.
With respect to salary studies and contract negotiations for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for protection of the public interest.
So a motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of salary studies and contract negotiations and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? Councilman Legman. Shut off, please.
Again, I don't see a need for this. We negotiated with good faith. Our staff has done their due diligence. They've done what they need to do. And now all of a sudden, we're going to be throwing a curveball at the last second when we're not ready for it, or next thing we have to change everything. All the negotiations thrown out the window because I just don't see a need for it. Sorry.
Is there any, Councilwoman Ganem?
Everyone deserves at least to ask questions and have their questions answered, however. And this would be a way that we can do it in an executive session and certainly air out concerns.
Councilman Jensen?
I understand your feeling, Ms. Gann, but nobody said they couldn't have his questions answered. We just don't need to drag everybody with him to do it. He can have them questions answered at any time, not necessarily here.
Is there any discussion? The pending motion is to go into executive session for the purpose of salary studies and contract negotiations for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Cast your vote.
Motion fails 4-2. Oh, I'm sorry. The motion passes 4-2. Well, no, I think it failed because it doesn't receive 5 votes.
Can't have 5 votes.
Yeah.
It fails.
Okay, where were we? Did we do? Jennifer was taking
Yes,
questions.
Jennifer was taking questions.
Councilman Yerger.
So since I can't address the questions that are really specific to tonight's discussion, I'll ask this question. I wanted to ask a follow-up question from the discussion from last evening. Unfortunately, we have a different lawyer here tonight, so we'll see if we get the same answer. My question is for legal, not for Ms. McDuffie. For the record, I just want to be perfectly clear on what was stated at the last meeting. What was said was that non-bargain pay grade study methodology gets protected status because and can't be publicly exposed because of potential litigation impacts on bargained employee negotiations. Is that what we were instructed?
Is that what Travis instructed you last night?
Yes.
Then I will stand by Travis's instruction.
Can you give the state statutory or the legal statutory
Had you
requirements?
called me before right now, I probably could have, but as I sit here right now, no.
Thank you.
Councilman Ellis?
Something concerned me a little bit in your last talk. You just said that we're not going to be able to, I guess I need to clarify that. You said we're under negotiations now and there will be another one in 2 years.
Correct.
Does that mean we don't get those comparisons until 2 years?
You've never been denied the comparisons. You've just been denied them viewed in a public meeting. You're welcome to go sit down with Ms.
So will
McDuffie
the
or
public
sit,
ever get
can I finish, please? Or sit down in an executive session and have those conversations. You've never been denied access to them, just not in the method and manner for which they've been asked up to this point.
Will the public ever get access to these comparisons?
No,
That is just disheartening. Why?
because they're not public records. And they're exceptions specifically identified in the statute.
Why are they not public record?
Because they're an exception under the statute.
Can you quote
The
me?
public, yes, the public record statute. Records which represent the work product of an attorney and the public body involved which are related to the preparation for litigation, labor negotiations, or claims are confidential communication. Specifically identified in 8471
Hang on, give me that again.
2.05, 84-712.05.
This is extremely disheartening because we're sitting here as a council expected to vote on about 25 comparison salaries. And we have to simply,
And you've not been denied viewing those. You've just chosen not the avenues to take to
but
see
the
them.
citizens are being denied these
The
comparisons.
citizens voted for you to vote on their behalf.
Yeah, and that's why I continue to vote no on these, and I will continue tonight. Jennifer, I had a constituent call me this afternoon. Under the government pay scale, the non-union 27.5 grade scale is set to 330511, but the IBEW 27.5 grade scale is set to 32.245. What's the difference?
They are two different pay, first of all, they're two different salary ordinances. So for as long as I know, those have never, like a grade scale 32 on the city has never been exactly what the.
No, these are both jobs on the
Oh, on
utility
the,
side.
okay,
On the utility
I
side.
think we need to hold that till we get to the utility ordinance. This is the
Okay,
city
I'm
side.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
All right.
Any other questions for staff? Any comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. It's interesting that the comment has been made that you had ample opportunity to come to City Hall and look at these comparisons, et cetera, when in fact, this is your third meeting in a row. And I'm not sure where the time would have fallen because people are employed. So whether you're John Q. Public or seated on the council, you should have an idea of what you are voting on. And I would suggest perhaps maybe that a few of you have never read the budget, nor do you understand it. And I would challenge any one of you to say that you have thoroughly read it and that you fully understand it. You should have been bothered by some of the questions of the public. You should have been bothered by some of the questions from your own council members. And to denigrate them in public and say that trust the expert, et cetera. Oh, I'm sorry, that phrase comes back to mind that someone said the other night, trust me. When you have only that to go on, there's something that is not being laid on the table. This is the first time that this kind of level of secrecy has happened for many years. There has not been a full strategic planning by the council. You were not involved. And now all of a sudden, back-to-back meetings, which as you can see, the public has been unable to attend. Again, why would they when their voices have left unheard? You don't take that in consideration. This is supposed to be your third reading. It's a third consecutive reading. It's been said, why are you changing this at the last minute? Where in the heck are you going to change it? Did you actually allow any changes? Did you actually listen to some of the concerns of the public? Did you listen to the concerns of your other council members? Or ask, why are they asking that? Did you reach out to your council members who've been asking these down and dirty questions, wanting to dig and find out so they fully understand what you're voting on? And yet you haven't because you don't take the time. You let your personal petty difference play into your decisions. You not only let the first reading go by without allowing any changes, any questions, but you did it again last night and you're going to do it again tonight. At what point, if you can't take in consideration people's comments, their questions, their concerns on the first reading, when the heck are you? You aren't listening to the public. This budget is real. This is taxpayers' dollars. If you're going to consider spending our money, then consider listening to all of us and listen to your federal counselors. You're all elected to listen to your constituents and be our voice. I don't see too many of those voices being heard. I realize this is your third reading. You've blown the opportunity the first night to make any choices. Several of you sat silent the first night. Several of you sat silent the second night. Not a word other than to chastise another member of your council. Shame on you.
Any other comments from the public?
Yeah, my name is Gene Chepler, 1940 North Broad Street. Kind of piggyback off that, you guys have been elected by the people to do their business. They elect you to do what's right for the city and most importantly, the citizens of the city. This kind of thing, for a long time, I've tried to get away from politics because it just drives me nuts. And to sit there and listen to all the backroom deals and stuff that go down. And, you guys make it hard to do that. And that's why I'm here today, because people ask you, like I said, to do that. The median income of Fremont for an individual and annual salary is $27,000. You have, if you kind of take out the firemen and the police, I believe there's, and you look at the rest of the administration that Fremont Fremont has, you're looking at $80,000 roughly, the median income. And, I'm assuming the union workers are going to probably get 3.5%, 3 to 3.5% raise and everything. The other people will I'm sure probably gets the same thing because we got to be fair. But you're dealing with the citizens of Fremont's money. The problem with that is you're taking more money from the citizens, but you have businesses down here, downtown, all around Fremont that are still trying to recover from COVID. And it's just pulling money out of the people's money to even help them. And it's disheartening to kind of see this kind of thing go on. So, thank you.
Irene Alexander, 1765 Victoria Lane. Well, I just want to say that watching this budget process has been truly painful for me. There's been long drawn out meetings. You're close to a deadline. The city council is trying to get answers to their questions. The staff sometimes feels like they're under attack. Everybody is frustrated, including the public. Now, this is not the fault of the council. Mayor Spellberg, I can see that you're frustrated at times too, but like it or not, the buck kind of stops with you. I know you're new on the job and you're still learning. And maybe you were led into this budget process by someone on staff, but this fiasco is not promising. Please be open to looking at a better process. I appreciate council members who are willing to ask tough questions and not just rubber stamp whatever is presented. We elect them to represent us and hold the administration accountable. If I were a council member, I would also like to have facts and know what I'm voting for. I appreciate those who wish to practice fiscal restraint as well. Now think about how much of this could have been avoided if the administration had involved the city council from the beginning of the budget process. A lot of questions have been answered prior to this. I did a little sleuthing of my own and went out to see how one of our comparable cities handled their budget process. And I didn't even have to hire a consultant. Their process was laid out openly. And each step along the way seemed transparent. The council was involved early on in planning for budget priorities. I saw numerous budget review work sessions held with council where department heads were brought in. They presented the budgets for their departments with explanations of their needs. This presented an opportunity for dialogue and questions, I would assume. Surely this would be a better alternative than what has been happening this budget process. One councilman said we should trust that the administration and staff have done the budget work properly and we should just approve it. Trust in the administration must be earned. This budget lacks transparency. When the administration tries to end around voter approved and unapproved projects, trust is lost. I personally lost some trust when I saw a directive from the city council about the tech park completely changed when the platting went back to the planning commission. People are also distrustful due to the state auditor's report about thousands of dollars in improper and or undocumented payments to prior employees. Yes, this was a prior administration, but some parties in this administration may still be in the know of how and why that happened. And the public has a right to know. I just want you to remember that people are what make a city. Please be an administration that puts those people first. Please earn our trust. Thank you.
Steve Ray, 1445 North Irving. I'd have to agree with the previous speaker. I don't know why you didn't start talking about some of these things way back in April, March. Projects that you want to get done, how they would coincide with the city's wishes and what some of the council members would like to see done. Even ask in public some of the things they might like to see done. rather than waiting and pushing it all in. I know you didn't have numbers, you don't have numbers. Well, you still don't have numbers. Good hard numbers necessarily. And I know we took some money away that you thought you could use. My opinion, it was what was necessary. And the whole budget process, if you ask me, needs to be changed, needs to be looked at before you people go through another budget. The newer council members, they're on a learning curve. The older members try to ask questions and get them so that they know what's going on a little bit. I couldn't look at the budget and do what some of them do, but that's what you're there for. And yes, the staff works very hard, but they also take input and questions that are asked by council members. Just saying they can come down, they all work. It's not like you can just come down to city council every day and ask a question. If they ask questions of the staff and stuff, they should be provided those answers in a timely manner. Not coming to a meeting the same night. Well, here's your answer. Well, yeah, I can't look at it and discuss and check anything out yet. So that's another thing that goes on. I'm from Ward 1, and as far as I'm concerned, telling people that trust the experts, trust the staff all the time, tells me he doesn't read the budget. He doesn't ask any questions. I come month after month to these meetings and he never asks any questions. And he gets very irritated when some people try to dig it out. So you really need to change this process and get started earlier, and you wouldn't have so many people at the last minute trying to come in and then saying, oh, it's the last minute, we can't change anything. We got to go with what they said. No, you don't. That's why you're here. You have the ability to change things and make amendments and do things. But it takes a process, and you need to start earlier so you're all involved in that process, not wait until the end of the time and say, oh, we only got 30 days to get this done.
On Zoom, Denise Shannon.
Yes, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I echo the previous speaker before, Mr. Ray, and then Ray. The fact that there was so little time given for all of this to be done is basically very suspicious in intent. And I have to say, Mark Legband, the animosity that you show to Mr. Yerger and Ellis for their work and their questions as councilmen doing their job as they should is just beyond believable. If you spent more time being a councilman as you did being so argumentative with them, you might actually be a good councilman yourself. And that goes for Mr. Jensen too. The two of you need attitude changes real quick. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
I didn't know we were talking about budget.
It's just one time is all. Moving on to comments from council. Councilwoman Ganem.
Yes, it is my first time through, so has been quite an experience. And I think we do learn from what's the process is, what it is, and certainly there's always room for improvement for the following year. Doesn't help right at this point. I understand that. But I also think we have been responsive with our public meetings and listening, and as reflected with what the mayor had presented, and his ideas with that part. I thought that was listening to the input that that the public had been giving with that. And if I listen to my constituents, yes, some would say increase my property taxes to fund one thing or another. But the majority are saying, please keep it, don't raise it anymore. Please do not raise our property taxes on one fixed income. Please find some other ways to fund things.
Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I've got to echo what Councilman Ganem said there, but I'd also say I've heard from other council too. I've been through 2 of these meetings and neither of them look anything like each other. Other councils have said to me, and we've discussed, there's nothing we can do about this one, but we should look at this differently going forward. We should look at the process being different than it is right now.
Any other comments from council? Take a motion to hold final reading. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to hold final reading of ordinance 5586.
Councilman Legban,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
The motion is 4-2.
I vote yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Cast your final vote. Oh, thank you. I have the reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees repealing ordinance number 5551 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
I raise a motion of privilege. Section 2-108 of Fremont's Municipal Code says the mayor should be allowed to vote when the council is evenly divided.
As you were provided previously by Mr. Jaycott in March, the state statute is in conflict with that. Therefore, the state statute wins. It doesn't have to be equally divided. The mayor is allowed to provide a vote to provide the majority. He voted correctly.
I have the reading already. Yes. Okay. Ready for the final vote? Cast your final vote.
The vote is 4-2.
I vote yes.
The motion carries 5-2.
Moving on, item 2. Ordinance 5587 to approve utility salary ordinance. This would be for final reading. We'll have staff report.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, Jennifer McDuffie, Director of Human Resources. This is the utilities salary ordinance. We've discussed it before, as we've stated before. The union contract on this side is not negotiated, so those salaries will continue as they are until that contract continues. And we'll bring the ordinance back at that time once we have a final contract agreed upon. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions for staff? Councilman Ellis.
So is that why the pay scale 27.5 is different? Isn't that kind of showing your hand to the union?
No, it's not necessarily, no.
Well, the non-union job is at 27.5 and they get 33.05. And the union job is 27.5 pay scale and they're sitting at 32.24.
But they're not the same job, are they?
And that same job, at same pay scale. So
That doesn't necessarily mean
shouldn't the
that
pay scale be the same per grade level?
yes, they should be.
But they're not.
Well,
One's non-union, one's union.
we've frozen the union ones for now until we get the contract negotiated. And then those positions may change.
Okay, so the union already knows what the non-union is gonna get
Mhm.
2029.
There's not much we can do to prevent that.
So you said these comparisons were done last year.
The non-union study was done last year, correct?
The non-unions were done last year.
Yes.
And you, what time last year? Last December, January?
I think we got the final report in September or October.
September, October.
I believe that's
So
about
why
the
were
time frame.
these kept? Why didn't we just come back with these changes?
Because as I've stated before, the intent has always been to do it with this new budget cycle because we didn't have a budget to make these changes.
Couldn't we have agreed
Previously.
to changes and made them effective October 1st?
Of last year,
No, if we had brought these changes to us in January or February, we could have approved the grade scales, but made the effect changes due October 1st. I'm just thinking, why was this weighted to the very end? Could this not have been
Because
done any
our
differently?
hope was to bring everything to you. Our plan was to bring everything to you at the same time.
And I don't mind that. It's just you brought it to us in the last hour, the last minute.
That was absolutely not the intent. Unfortunately, this is where we're at and we don't have one negotiation done.
Yeah. Like I said before, this was a fail. And it's falling on the city council and it's making us look bad. It's making us make decisions that we shouldn't be making. And that's why I continue to vote no on this.
Any questions for staff? Councilman Yerger.
I don't have any questions for staff. I want to echo Councilman Ellis's concern and the concerns that have been raised by the public tonight, who spoke eloquently on the process of our budget for this year. It has been nothing but a debacle from day one. I like Councilman Ellis. I'm appalled at the fact that we're making a lot of these decisions at the very end of the process without the opportunity to even affect good Q&A discussion between council members and staff, not having an opportunity to have across the front of the room dialogue with other council members because of the muzzle law that compels us to only speak once. We can't have effective debate and discussion and resolve the issues of budget and get to the bottom of everyone's questions and concerns with those kinds of restrictions and timelines. For a city of our size, it's appalling. And for other cities that are of similar size, their processes put us to shame. And it's almost an embarrassment to sit up here and to think that we have to go through this. So again, I echo Councilman Ellis's concern. I think it's truly unfortunate that we have to push these things through with the mayor's overriding vote on all of this information, because the council should be making these decisions. That's what we're elected for. Thank you.
Any comments from the public?
Yeah, Gene Chapelair, 1940 North Broad Street. I wanted to speak about the budget again, because at my job and a couple of clubs that I belong to, I've dealt with the budget. This last year, we started in March of this year for the 2022 budget. It went on for months, going through negotiating different things on pay raises and that kind of stuff. And what we're going to spend the money on, what was needed. Months of negotiations that went on. This budget needs to be done earlier, so you guys have time. And if you need to change the process, it's where you guys can negotiate and go back and forth, do it. Because not being able to do that is just flat out wrong. I've actually taken a look at the budget that you guys put out, and I can't understand it. I mean, I deal with budgets all the time. I can't understand it. It's not put together properly to be able for someone of the public to sit there and look at and kind of get an idea of what's going on. It needs to be something that you guys put together so we can look at it and understand what's going on. That's, I mean, that's, you guys work basically for us. I hate to use that terminology because everybody uses it. But you guys were elected by the people to do our work. And when you don't quite do our work properly, that's why I'm here. Like I said, I try to stay away from this kind of stuff, but at some point in time, you just gotta stand up. And you guys need to get that budget. First of all, started earlier, and then you guys need to work together with the public. If you need to, there should be public input. We should have some sort of input of what we want to spend, especially spend our money on. So you need, if it needs to be changed, you need to get somehow to get that changed. I don't know what the laws are about that. I'm not into that, but please, let us understand what's going on. Let us have some feedback into what's going on. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. I would echo what he said. The process has been kind of a debacle this year. 2 years ago wasn't much better. This is actually worse. The muzzle law existed this time around. That said, I do understand that state statute allows what you can and cannot do, but you can choose to be more restrictive, which is exactly what our Fremont Municipal Code is. So I would perhaps challenge the legal opinion in some way, and perhaps somebody with the public will take that to task at some point, because you do have to follow state statute, but you can choose to be more restrictive. You just can't be more lax. And your Fremont Municipal Code was meant to be more restrictive and limit how much input the mayor has as far as his vote. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any additional comments from council? Councilman Yerger.
Just wanted to re-clarify for purposes of last night's discussion. I think I understand, but I just want to get clarity. Because you haven't finished the last union contract for the non-bargained individuals that are covered under this particular ordinance, you're using a 2.5% COLA versus the 3% COLA that was put into the previous agenda item. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is it your intention to, I don't know, you probably won't speculate, but if the union contract comes up to be more than 2.5% at some point in time down the road and you refile amended budgets or whatever, and they, let's say, come in at 3 or 3.5% COLA, is it your intention to adjust upward those that were in this ordinance passed at 2.5%?
We would evaluate that. I mean, that would be a consideration that would be done, but I can't say what we would do for sure.
Have you done budget refilings in the past because of union contract delay?
4 years ago, AFSCME was not done at this time, and I don't believe that went into effect. That was prior to me getting here, but I don't think the AFSCME contract was done until the end of October or November. So we were in the same situation 4 years ago. Does that sound right? Okay.
So corresponding question then to Ms. Sanders with regards to the overall budget in general, not necessarily salary related to your item, but as we would do a refiling supposedly because of the contract completion at a later date, then there's nothing barring the city of Fremont from incorporating additional additional adjustment items in that refiling with the state. Is that accurate?
I would just be careful where we're going with this conversation. I believe Mr. Jaycott informed you last night that we have to maintain our conversations to the salary ordinance, not to the budget. It's an entirety. I'm trying to preclude any violations of the Open Meetings Act. We're here solely on the salary ordinances. I understand that they're part of the budget, but they're not the entire budget. Just make sure our questions and our conversations are specific to the salary ordinance to stay within the confines.
Okay, I guess we'll never know whether we can refile a budget on any other items than the salary budget. Thank you.
Councilman Jensen,
Well, I was going to comment some about the taking public comment and getting better input, but if that's not part of the salary ordinance, maybe that's not, this isn't the proper time for that.
The only two items on the agenda are related to the salary ordinances for each department. So our conversation and our topic of conversation has to be limited to those items. I believe the budget's up next week. Am I right? Next Tuesday, have those conversations then, absolutely. But tonight, I want to make sure we maintain the proper conversations.
any other comments from council? Take a motion to hold final reading. Councilman Legman,
I make a motion to hold final reading of ordinance 5587.
Councilman Jensen,
I will second that.
cast your votes.
Vote is 4-2.
I vote yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees repealing ordinance number 5577 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote.
The vote is 4-2.
Yes.
The ordinance is approved 5-2.
Take a motion to adjourn. Councilman Legman,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Councilman Jensen,
Cast your votes, please. Motion carries 5-1.
we are adjourned.